Help! My mommy won't wake up. She's on the floor.
Who is this?
The phone line crackled with static and panic. Mia Sterling's small voice trembled through the emergency dispatch center, her words tumbling over each other like broken glass. Please help, my mommy won't wake up. She's on the floor and her eyes are closed and I can't make her wake up. The dispatcher's fingers flew across the keyboard, trying to trace the call, but the number wasn't routing correctly. It wasn't connecting to 911. It was connecting to something else entirely. And in that moment, across the city in a steel and glass tower that touched the clouds, CEO Kang Min-ho's private line rang for the first time in 3 years. He answered out of pure instinct, his voice cold and commanding.
Who is this?
Who is this? What he heard made something crack open in his chest. A child crying, a woman unconscious, a little girl begging anyone to save her mother. And just like that, the most powerful man in Seoul felt something he hadn't felt since he was a boy watching his own mother die. The unstoppable need to protect someone who didn't even know his name. Welcome to K-fairytales stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Kang Min-ho stared at his phone like it had just become a live grenade. The call was still connected. The child was still crying. His entire world had just narrowed down to this single moment, this fragile voice cutting through years of carefully constructed walls. He pressed the phone closer to his ear, his other hand already gesturing sharply to his assistant who stood frozen in the doorway. Trace this call. Now. I don't care how you do it. Trace it immediately. The little girl on the other end was still talking, her words broken by hiccuping sobs. I tried to call the ambulance number, but I got the numbers wrong, and Mommy told me to always call for help if something bad happens, and this is bad. This is really bad. Min-ho's voice gentled in a way that would have shocked anyone who knew him. What's your name, sweetheart? There was a sniffling sound. Mia Sterling. I'm 6 years old and my mommy is Lyanna and she won't wake up. His heart clenched. 6 years old, the same age his sister had been when she'd called for help and no one had come. Mia, I need you to be very brave for me. Can you do that? A tiny, shaky yes came through the line. Good girl, I'm going to help you and your mommy, but I need you to tell me everything you can see. Are you at home? Yes, we live in apartment 304. The building is called Riverside Gardens. Mommy said it's not fancy, but it's ours. Min-ho was already moving, his assistant scrambling to keep up as he strode toward the private elevator. His security team materialized around him like shadows, their expressions tight with concern. He never left the building during work hours. He never showed emotion, and he certainly never ran anywhere, but he was running now. His driver had the car ready before he reached the ground floor. Min-ho slid into the back seat, phone still pressed to his ear, his entire focus on the frightened child on the other end of the line. Mia, I'm coming to help you right now. I need you to unlock the door if you can reach it, and then I need you to stay with your mommy. Can you hold her hand? I'm holding it already. Her hand is cold. Is that bad? The question nearly broke him. You're doing perfectly. Keep holding her hand and keep talking to her. Tell her you love her. Tell her help is coming. His driver was already pulling into traffic, the usual Seoul congestion parting for them as his security team cleared a path with efficiency that would have made military generals weep with envy. Min-ho had built his empire on precision and control, and right now every resource he possessed was focused on reaching that apartment. Riverside Gardens. He knew the building. A lower middle-class complex in one of Seoul's transitional neighborhoods, the kind of place where single mothers stretched everyone and children learned early that life wasn't fair. The kind of place he'd grown up in before money and revenge had transformed him into something else entirely. The drive took 12 minutes. It felt like 12 years. Min-ho listened to Mia's voice the entire time, keeping her calm, keeping her talking, learning more about her and her mother with every passing second. Lyanna Sterling was a translator. She worked from home. She'd been sick for a few days but insisted she was fine. She'd been making lunch when she'd collapsed. Mia had tried to wake her up, then remembered the emergency number her mother had taught her, but in her panic she'd transposed the digits. Instead of reaching emergency services, she'd connected to the private line of the most powerful CEO in Seoul, a number that shouldn't have even been accessible. A coincidence that felt like fate. Min-ho's building manager was already on the line with building security at Riverside Gardens by the time they arrived. The apartment door was unlocked just as Mia had promised. Min-ho took the stairs 2 at a time, his security team fanning out around him. and when he pushed open the door to apartment 304, the scene that greeted him carved itself into his memory with the precision of a blade. A small living room with worn furniture and cheerful curtains. Children's drawings taped to the walls. And in the middle of it all, a little girl with dark curls and tear-stained cheeks kneeling beside a woman who lay motionless on the kitchen floor. The woman was beautiful, even unconscious. Dark hair spread around her like a halo, delicate features, curves that even her simple clothes couldn't hide, and skin so pale it was almost translucent. Minho's medical team was right behind him, the private physician he kept on retainer already moving to assess the situation, but Minho couldn't take his eyes off the little girl. She looked up at him with eyes that were far too old for her age, eyes that had learned to be afraid, and something in his chest shifted permanently. "You came," Mia whispered. "I came," he said, and knelt beside her as the doctor worked. "Your mommy is going to be okay. We're going to take care of her." The doctor's diagnosis was swift and certain. Severe dehydration combined with an undiagnosed kidney infection. Lyanna Sterling had been working herself to exhaustion, ignoring her own health while trying to provide for her daughter. Without treatment, she could have died. With treatment, she'd make a full recovery, but she needed to be hospitalized immediately. Minho made the decision without hesitation. "Take her to Seoul Memorial, private wing. Whatever she needs, whatever it costs, I'm covering it." His assistant didn't even blink. When Kang Minho gave an order, you followed it. The question of payment could be sorted out later. Right now, a woman needed help and her daughter needed security. The paramedics were gentle as they loaded Lyanna onto a stretcher. Mia tried to follow, her small hand clutching her mother's. But one of the medical team gently suggested she might want to wait for other family to arrive. The look of pure devastation on that little girl's face made Minho's decision for him. "She's coming with us," he said, his tone allowing no argument. "And so am I." He held out his hand to Mia. She looked at it, then at him, her lower lip trembling. "You promise my mommy will be okay?" "I promise," he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. She took his hand. Her fingers were so small they barely wrapped around two of his. And in that moment, Kang Minho, the man who'd built an empire on ruthlessness and cold calculation, felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. The fierce, protective love of family. The hospital staff at Seoul Memorial moved with impressive efficiency when they realized who was accompanying the patient. Private suite, best doctors, immediate treatment. Mia never left her mother's side, and Minho never left Mia's. He sat in an uncomfortable chair in a hospital room that cost more per night than most people's monthly rent, watching a little girl hold her unconscious mother's hand, and felt his entire worldview shifting. His assistant appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand, expression carefully neutral. "Sir, you have the board meeting in an hour. The merger documents need your signature, and the Singapore investors are waiting for your call." Minho didn't even glance at him. "Reschedule everything. I'm staying here." There was a pause. "Everything, sir. Everything." The assistant disappeared. Word would spread through the company within minutes. Kang Minho, who never missed a meeting, who never changed his schedule, who ran his empire with the precision of a Swiss watch, had just canceled an entire day of obligations to sit in a hospital room with a woman he'd never met and a child who wasn't his. The gossip would be spectacular. He didn't care. Mia looked up at him, her eyes red from crying. "Why are you being so nice to us? You don't even know us." It was a fair question. He'd been asking himself the same thing. "Because you called me for help," he said simply. "And when someone asks me for help, I don't walk away." It was true enough. It was also nowhere near the whole truth. The whole truth was that from the moment he'd heard her voice on that phone, something had shifted in his universe. And when he'd walked into that apartment and seen Lyanna Sterling lying there so pale and still, with her daughter crying beside her, something had awakened in him. Something primitive and possessive and absolutely terrifying. He wanted to protect them, both of them, wanted it with an intensity that made no logical sense whatsoever. Later that evening, Lyanna woke up. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, confusion giving way to panic as she registered the unfamiliar surroundings. "Mia," she gasped, trying to sit up. "I'm here, Mommy." Mia scrambled onto the bed, careful of the IV lines. "I'm okay. The nice man helped us." Lyanna's gaze swung to Minho, who'd stood the moment she'd stirred. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. He watched her take in his expensive suit, the obvious private hospital room, her daughter's complete comfort with him. Watched her mind work through the implications. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "And what did this cost?" Straight to the practical questions, he respected that. "My name is Kang Minho, and the cost isn't your concern." Her eyes narrowed despite her obvious weakness. "Everything costs something. I can't afford this. I can't afford you. Good thing I'm not asking you to." He moved closer to the bed, careful not to crowd her. "Your daughter called me by accident when you collapsed. She was trying to reach emergency services and transpose some numbers. My private line isn't listed anywhere, so the odds of her reaching me are astronomical. But she did, and I came." Lyanna's hand found Mia's, clutching it tight. "I don't understand. Why would you do all this for strangers?" "Because I could," he said simply. "Because she needed help and I was able to give it. Because walking away wasn't an option." The doctor chose that moment to enter, his expression professionally pleasant. "Ah, Mrs. Sterling, excellent timing. Let's discuss your treatment plan." Minho stepped back, giving them space, but Lyanna's voice stopped him. "Mr. Kang, wait." He turned. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Suspicion mixed with gratitude, mixed with something that might have been fear. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for helping Mia, for bringing us here. I'll find a way to repay you." "There's nothing to repay. There's always something to repay." Her eyes held his. "People don't do things for free, not in my experience. So whatever this costs, whatever you want in return, just tell me now so I know what I'm dealing with." The blunt honesty of it hit him harder than any business negotiation ever had. She wasn't swooning over his wealth or his power. She was treating him like a potential threat, like someone who might have ulterior motives. It should have offended him. Instead, it made him want her even more. The next morning, Minho returned to the hospital with his assistant in tow, both of them carrying bags that definitely weren't medical supplies. Mia squealed when she saw him, launching herself at his legs with the kind of trust that made his chest ache. "You came back. Mommy said you probably wouldn't because important people don't have time for regular people, but I knew you would." Over Mia's head, he met Lyanna's eyes. She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I may have been a bit cynical," she admitted. "Your cynicism is entirely justified." He gently detached Mia and handed her one of the bags. "I thought you might be bored, so I brought some things to keep you occupied." Inside were books, puzzles, art supplies, and a stuffed rabbit that made Mia gasp with delight. The other bag went to Lyanna. "Clothes, toiletries, anything I thought you might need. My assistant is very thorough." Lyanna opened the bag slowly, her expression carefully neutral as she took in the contents. Everything was high quality but not ostentatiously expensive. Practical, thoughtful, exactly what someone in a hospital would need. "This is too much," she said quietly. "This is basic human decency." He sat in the chair he'd claimed as his own. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctor says I can go home in 2 days if I rest and stay hydrated and stop being an idiot about my own health." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Apparently working 16-hour days while fighting an infection is frowned upon medically. "You work 16-hour days regularly." It wasn't a question. She shrugged. "Freelance translation doesn't come with benefits or paid sick leave. If I don't work, I don't get paid. If I don't get paid, the rent doesn't get paid. Basic economics." The casual way she said it. Like grinding herself down was just an accepted part of life, made anger flash through him, not at her, at a system that forced single mothers to choose between their health and their child's security. "What languages do you translate?" he heard himself ask. "English, Korean, Japanese, and Mandarin. Sometimes French if the client is desperate and the money is good enough." She tilted her head, studying him. "Why?" "Because I'm always looking for talented translators. My company handles international contracts constantly. We have an in-house team, but they're perpetually overworked." He kept his tone casual, professional. "If you're interested, I could set up an interview." Suspicion flashed across her face immediately. "I'm not a charity case." "No, you're a qualified professional with skills I can use. This is business, not charity." "Business," she repeated slowly. "Exactly. You translate documents for me. I pay you market rate. Everyone benefits." He pulled out his phone, made a show of checking his schedule. "My head of acquisitions could meet with you next week, completely separate from all this, completely professional." Lyanna was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing the offer. "Market rate? Plus benefits since it would be a contract position. Health insurance, retirement matching, the standard package." Now he was just showing off, but he couldn't help himself. He wanted to give her security. wanted to make sure she never had to work herself to collapse again, wanted things he had no right to want. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Fair enough." He stood, straightening his suit jacket. "I have meetings today, but I'll be back this evening to check on both of you. You really don't have to do that." "I know." He smiled, and this time he let her see a fraction of what he was feeling. "But I want to." By the end of the week, Lyanna was discharged with strict instructions to rest and a prescription list that made her wince at the cost. Minho intercepted the bill before she could see it, handling it through his assistant with the same casual efficiency he used for everything else. She found out anyway, of course. Confronted him in the hospital lobby with Mia holding her hand, her eyes blazing with an emotion he was starting to recognize as her particular brand of stubborn pride. "I saw the invoice. That room cost more than I make in 3 months. You can't just pay for something like that without even discussing it." "I can and I did. Consider it handled." He gestured toward his car, which waited at the curb. "My driver will take you home." "I can take a cab." "You could, but my driver is already here and he's paid whether you use him or not, so you might as well." He saw her wavering and pressed his advantage. "Besides, Mia likes him. Don't you, sweetheart?" Mia nodded enthusiastically. "He let me sit in the front seat last time and showed me all the buttons." Lyanna's resistance crumbled. "Fine, but this doesn't mean I'm accepting your job offer." "Of course not. That's a completely separate decision that you'll make based entirely on professional considerations." He opened the car door. "Though I should mention that my head of acquisitions called me yesterday. Apparently someone sent him your resume and he's very impressed. He'd like to schedule an interview for Monday if you're available." Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't send anyone my resume." "Didn't you? How strange." He smiled innocently. "Must have been a different Lyanna Sterling who's fluent in 4 languages and specializes in legal and medical translation." She looked like she wanted to argue, but Mia was already climbing into the car, chattering excitedly about going home. Lyanna sighed, recognizing a tactical defeat when she saw one. "Monday. I'll meet with him Monday, but if I get this job, it's because I'm qualified, not because you're pulling strings." "I wouldn't dream of it." He absolutely would dream of it. Was in fact already pulling every string he could reach, but he'd be subtle about it. She slid into the car beside Mia, and for just a moment their eyes met through the window. The connection hit him like electricity, making his breath catch and his heart rate spike. She felt it too. He saw it in the way her pupils dilated, the way her lips parted slightly, the way she looked away quickly like she'd been burned. Good. Let her feel it. Let her be as off balance as he was. The following Monday, Lyanna arrived at Minho's corporate headquarters 15 minutes early, dressed in her best professional outfit, which he noticed was slightly worn at the cuffs but perfectly pressed. She'd braided her hair into a crown that made her look regal despite her obvious nerves. He watched her through the security camera feed as she checked in at reception, as she was escorted to the acquisitions department, as she sat in the waiting area reviewing documents on her tablet. He had no business watching her like this, had meetings stacked back to back, but he couldn't look away. The interview lasted 90 minutes. When it was over, his head of acquisitions called him personally. "Sir, I don't know where you found her, but she's extraordinary. Her translation work is flawless, her understanding of legal terminology is impressive, and she negotiated for benefits like she was born to it." Minho smiled. "So you're offering her the position?" "I'm offering her 3 different positions and letting her choose which one fits her schedule best. She's exactly what we need." That evening, Minho showed up at apartment 304 with takeout from Seoul's most expensive restaurant and a bottle of wine to celebrate. Mia answered the door, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Mr. Kang, Mommy got a job. She's been dancing around the kitchen all day." Inside, Lyanna was indeed in the kitchen, and she looked happier than he'd ever seen her. Younger. Lighter, like something heavy had been lifted off her shoulders. "I heard the good news," he said, setting down the food. "Congratulations, I told you you were qualified." "Thank you." She moved toward him, hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Rising on her toes, she pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. "For everything, for saving my life, for helping Mia, for the interview, for all of it." The kiss was brief, innocent, completely appropriate. And it hit him like a lightning strike, flooding his system with heat and want and the overwhelming urge to pull her closer and show her exactly how he wanted to be thanked. He didn't move, didn't trust himself to move, just stood there like a statue while she backed away, a pretty flush coloring her cheeks. "I'm starting next week," she continued, her words coming faster like she was nervous. Part-time to start since Mia's still in school, but with potential to increase hours. The benefits package is incredible. They even have childcare options. Good, that's good. His voice sounded rough to his own ears. You deserve it. Mia chose that moment to investigate the food, squealing when she discovered there were dumplings, her favorite. Lyanna laughed, and the sound wrapped around Minho's heart like a fist. He was in so much trouble. Had been since the moment he'd heard Mia's voice on that phone. But seeing Lyanna happy, seeing her looking at him with something that wasn't suspicion or wariness, seeing her actually relax in his presence, it made all of it worth it. Even if she never looked at him the way he was starting to look at her, even if this was all he ever got, it would be enough. Except he was Kang Minho, and he'd built an empire by refusing to settle for enough. He wanted more, wanted everything, wanted her. Over the following weeks, a pattern developed. Minho found himself at apartment 304 more often than his penthouse. Sometimes he brought dinner. Sometimes he brought toys for Mia. Sometimes he just showed up with no excuse at all, and Lyanna would let him in with an expression that said she knew exactly what he was doing but couldn't quite bring herself to send him away. Mia adored him. Would climb into his lap during movie nights, her small head resting against his chest like she belonged there. Would ask him to read bedtime stories in his deep voice because it made the characters sound more real. Would call him Uncle Minho with such casual affection that it physically hurt. And Lyanna, she was warming to him slowly, like ice melting in spring sunshine. She'd smile when he arrived, would save him a plate if they'd already eaten. Would sit beside him on the couch, close enough that their shoulders brushed, close enough that he could smell her shampoo. One evening, after Mia had fallen asleep during a movie, Lyanna turned to him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Why do you keep coming here? You're one of the most powerful men in Seoul. You could be anywhere doing anything with anyone. Why us? Because this is where I want to be. He kept his voice low so as not to wake Mia. Because coming here feels more like coming home than anything I've experienced in 20 years. Because you make me feel human again. She was quiet for a long moment. That's a lot of pressure to put on a woman you barely know. I know you better than you think. I know you work yourself to exhaustion because you're terrified of failing Mia. I know you eat the leftovers and give her the fresh food. I know you haven't bought yourself new clothes in over a year because every spare one goes into her education fund. I know you're fierce and protective and stubborn and brilliant. I know that when you smile it makes my entire world brighter. His hand found hers on the couch between them. I know that I'm falling for you and there's nothing I can do to stop it even if I wanted to. Her breath caught. Minho, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Needed you to understand that this isn't charity or obligation or some kind of savior complex. This is me wanting you, wanting to be part of your life, wanting to give you everything you've been denying yourself for years. He lifted their joined hands, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. But I'll wait, however long it takes. I'm patient when it matters. She was looking at him with eyes that shimmered with unshed tears. I'm not in your league. I'm a single mother barely making rent in a rundown apartment. You're Kang Minho, we don't make sense. We make perfect sense. You're everything I've been looking for without knowing I was looking. You're home. The tears spilled over then, tracking down her cheeks. I'm scared of this, of you, of how much I'm starting to feel. People like me don't get happy endings with people like you. People like me don't deserve people like you, but I'm selfish enough to try anyway. He cupped her face gently, wiping away tears with his thumbs. Let me prove it to you. Let me show you that this can work, that I can be what you need. What if you can't? What if you wake up one day and realize we're just a novelty, that this was just you playing hero and now you're bored? Never. The word was absolute. You could never bore me. This could never be just novelty. I've never felt this way about anyone. You're it for me, Lyanna. The moment I heard Mia's voice on that phone, the moment I walked into this apartment and saw you, something in me recognized something in you. This is fate. This is meant to be. He was laying it all out there, every card on the table. No games, no strategy, just raw honesty and the desperate hope that she felt even a fraction of what he was feeling. She searched his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she leaned forward and kissed him. The kiss started gentle, tentative, like she was testing the reality of what was happening between them. But Minho had been holding back for weeks, had been wanting this with an intensity that bordered on madness, and the moment her lips touched his, something inside him snapped. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. She made a small sound of surprise that turned into something else entirely as she melted against him. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he was drowning in her. The taste of her, the feel of her curves pressed against him, the way she kissed him back like she'd been starving for this too. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho rested his forehead against hers. "Tell me this is real. Tell me I'm not imagining this." "It's real," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I don't know how or why, but it's real. I've been trying not to feel this. Trying to convince myself you're just being kind. But every time you show up, every time you look at me like I'm precious, I fall a little harder." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring every second. "You are precious. You and Mia both. And I'm going to spend every day proving it to you." They stayed on that couch until late, kissing and talking and building something that felt bigger than both of them. Mia slept peacefully in Lyanna's arms while Minho held them both, and for the first time in his adult life, he felt complete. The next morning brought consequences neither of them had anticipated. Minho's assistant called at 7 with barely controlled panic in his voice. "Sir, you need to see the news. Now." Minho was still at Lyanna's apartment, having fallen asleep on the couch after she'd gone to bed, not wanting to leave them unprotected. He grabbed his phone and pulled up the news feed. The headline made his blood run cold. CEO Kang Minho's secret family, billionaire spotted with mystery woman and child. Below it were photos. Him entering the apartment building. Him with Mia at the hospital. Him and Lyanna at a park last weekend where he'd pushed Mia on the swings while Lyanna watched with a smile that could have powered cities. The media had found them, and they were spinning it as a secret relationship, complete with speculation about whether Mia was his daughter, whether this was an affair, whether his company's stock would be affected by the scandal. Lyanna emerged from her bedroom, took one look at his face, and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" He showed her the phone, watched the color drain from her face as she read. "Oh God, this is going to ruin you, your reputation, your company, everything. I don't care about any of that. You should care. This is your life, your empire. You can't throw it away for us." She was already pulling away, already building walls. "This was a mistake. I shouldn't have let this happen. I should have known better." "Lyanna, stop." He caught her hands. "Listen to me. This changes nothing. They can print whatever they want. Let them. You don't understand. They're going to dig into my past, into Mia's father, into every mistake I've ever made. They're going to tear us apart just to sell papers. Then let them try." His voice was steel. "I have the best legal team in Asia. I have resources they can't imagine. And more importantly, I have the truth. Which is that I'm in love with you and I don't care who knows it." She stared at him. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not? It's true. I love you, Lyanna. I love Mia. I love the life we're building together. And I'm not letting gossip and speculation destroy it before it's even really started." Before she could respond, his phone rang. His head of PR. He answered on speaker. "Mr. Kang, we need to get ahead of this immediately. I recommend a press conference where you deny the relationship, state that you were simply helping a company employee in need, and distance yourself from any romantic implications." "No. Sir, with respect, this is the only way to contain the damage." "I said no." Minho's voice was absolute. "I'm not denying anything. I'm not distancing myself. In fact, I want you to prepare a different statement. One confirming that I'm in a relationship with Lyanna Sterling, that I intend to pursue this relationship seriously, and that anyone who harasses her or her daughter will be dealing with me personally." Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, "Sir, are you certain that's wise?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He looked at Lyanna as he said it, saw the shock and something that might have been hope warring on her face. "Draft the statement. I'll review it in an hour." The press conference happened that afternoon. Minho stood before a room full of reporters, camera flashes going off like lightning, and told the truth. "Yes, I'm in a relationship with Lyanna Sterling. Yes, I met her and her daughter in unusual circumstances that I won't be discussing out of respect for their privacy. Yes, I'm serious about this relationship, and I expect everyone to treat them with the respect they deserve." The questions came fast and furious. "Is the child yours? Are you planning to marry her? What about the company?" Minho answered each one with calm precision. "Mia is not my biological daughter, but I love her as if she were. As for marriage, that's a private matter between Lyanna and myself. And regarding the company, my personal life has no bearing on my ability to run it effectively. If the board disagrees, they're welcome to call for a vote of no confidence. I guarantee they won't like the results." It was a power move. A declaration of war against anyone who thought they could use this against him. And it worked. The media couldn't decide if he was brave or insane, but they definitely couldn't ignore him. By evening, the story had shifted from scandal to romance. Billionaire CEO defends girlfriend in emotional press conference. Kang Min-ho risks everything for love. The public ate it up. Suddenly, they weren't a secret shame. They were a fairy tale. The powerful CEO and the struggling single mother. The accidental phone call that changed everything. It was perfect narrative material. Lyanna watched it all unfold from her apartment, Mia sleeping beside her, and when Min-ho finally returned that night, she pulled him into the apartment and kissed him with everything she had. "You're completely insane," she said against his mouth. "Absolutely out of your mind. No one does what you just did." "I do. For you, I do." He lifted her easily, backing her against the wall, his kiss turning demanding. "I told you I'd prove it. I told you this was real. Did you believe me now?" "Yes," she gasped as his mouth found her neck. "Yes, I believe you." The following weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments and revelations. Lyanna started her new position at Min-ho's company, working from home 3 days a week to be with Mia. The other employees treated her with cautious respect, curious about the woman who'd captured their CEO's attention, but too professional to gossip openly. Min-ho moved them out of the cramped apartment into a house in one of Seoul's better neighborhoods. Lyanna protested until she saw Mia's face when she realized she'd have her own room, a backyard, and a dog that Min-ho had somehow already acquired and trained. "You can't just buy us a house," Lyanna said, but her heart wasn't in the argument. "I didn't buy you a house, I bought us a house. There's a difference." He showed her the deed, both their names. "Equal ownership, equal partnership. This is our home, Lyanna, yours, mine, and Mia's." She cried then, happy tears this time. The kind that came from finally believing that good things could happen to people like her. That night after Mia was asleep in her new room, Lyanna led Min-ho to the master bedroom. They made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other's bodies with reverent attention. Afterward, she lay in his arms, tracing patterns on his chest. "I never thought I could have this. Someone who sees me, who wants me, who loves my daughter like she's his own. I never thought I could feel this," he admitted. "I built my whole life around being untouchable, unreachable. And then a 6-year-old girl called my phone by mistake and everything changed. Do you regret it?" "Never, not for a second." He pulled her closer. "You're the best accident that ever happened to me." 3 months into their relationship, the real test came. Mia's biological father appeared. Derek Chen had abandoned Lyanna when she was pregnant, had never paid a single one in child support, had never even met his daughter. But now that Min-ho was in the picture, now that there was money and prestige involved, suddenly he wanted custody. The lawsuit landed on Min-ho's desk like a grenade. Derek was claiming that Lyanna was an unfit mother, that she'd kept Mia from him deliberately, that he deserved a relationship with his daughter. It was pure opportunism, a cash grab disguised as parental concern, but it was also legally complicated. Korean custody laws favored biological parents. If Derek could prove Lyanna had prevented contact, he might actually win visitation rights. Or worse, Lyanna was devastated. He doesn't even know her name, doesn't know her birthday. Doesn't know anything about her, and now he wants to take her from me. He won't. Min-ho's voice was absolute. "I promise you, Lyanna, he won't take her. I'll burn through every lawyer in Seoul before I let that happen. You can't fight biology. Watch me." He was already on the phone with his legal team, pulling strings, calling in favors. The case went to court faster than anyone expected. Min-ho's lawyers presented evidence that Derek had never attempted contact until now, had never paid support, had actively refused paternity when Lyanna was pregnant. They presented Mia's school records, showing her thriving under her mother's care. They even had Mia's teacher testify that the child had never mentioned a father until Min-ho appeared in her life. Derek's lawyers argued that he'd been denied the opportunity to be a father, that Lyanna had moved to Seoul specifically to keep Mia from him, that his recent interest was genuine reformation. It was lies, all of it, but it was convincing lies. The judge called for a recess to review the evidence. Min-ho found Lyanna in the courthouse bathroom, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "He's going to win, I can feel it. They're going to give him visitation and he's going to use it to hurt me, to control me." "No." Min-ho pulled her into his arms. "Listen to me, he's not going to win. And even if by some miracle he does, I will make his life so difficult that he'll regret ever filing this lawsuit. I will follow him everywhere. I will document everything. I will make sure he never has a moment alone with Mia where she's not protected. I will make him wish he'd never heard our names. You can't do that forever. Watch me." His eyes were absolutely serious. "I have resources he can't imagine. I have patience and money and the absolute refusal to lose." He picked the wrong family to extort. The judge's ruling came down 2 days later. Custody remained with Lyanna. Derek was granted supervised visitation, 2 hours per month, subject to review after 6 months. It was a compromise that satisfied no one. Except Minho had one more card to play. His investigators had been digging into Derek's life. What they found was exactly what Minho had suspected. Derek was in debt, serious gambling debt, the kind that got people hurt. He'd approached Lyanna's family for money first. When they'd refused, he'd gone to loan sharks. And when those loans came due and he couldn't pay, someone had suggested another revenue stream. The rich CEO dating his ex. A custody suit would get him a settlement, or at least that's what he'd been promised. Minho had recordings of those conversations, had bank statements, had everything needed to prove that Derek's sudden paternal interest was pure financial extortion. He delivered it all to the judge personally. The next day, Derek's custody petition was dismissed with prejudice. He was also facing criminal charges for attempted extortion and fraud. Minho's lawyers made sure of that. When Lyanna found out what he'd done, she looked at him like he'd hung the moon. "You destroyed him. I protected our family, there's a difference. Our family," she smiled through tears. "I like the sound of that. Good, because I have something I need to ask you." He dropped to one knee right there in the courthouse hallway. "Lyanna Sterling, you and Mia have given me something I never thought I'd have. A home. A purpose beyond profit margins and shareholder value. A reason to be better than I was. I love you both with everything I am. Will you marry me? Let me be Mia's father legally. Let me give you both my name. Let me spend the rest of my life making you happy." Lyanna was crying too hard to speak at first. Finally, she managed a shaky, "Yes, yes, of course, yes." The ring was beautiful, simple, elegant. Exactly her style. He slipped it on her finger and kissed her in front of a dozen lawyers and courthouse staff who burst into spontaneous applause. Mia found out that evening when they got home. Minho knelt down to her level, suddenly nervous in a way he'd never been in any business negotiation. "Mia, I asked your mom to marry me and she said yes, but I wanted to ask you something too." Mia's eyes went wide. "What?" "I want to adopt you. I want to be your dad officially. Not just someone who comes around and loves you. Your actual father, the one on your birth certificate. The one who gets to walk you down the aisle someday and scare off boys and be there for every important moment. But only if you want that. Only if you'd be okay with it." For a moment, Mia just stared at him. Then she launched herself into his arms with enough force to knock him backward. "Yes, yes, yes, yes. I want you to be my daddy forever." Minho held her tight, this tiny person who'd accidentally called him and changed his entire world. "Forever it is then, sweetheart. Forever." The wedding happened 3 months later. Small by Seoul's standards. Just family and close friends and a garden ceremony that Mia helped plan. She was the flower girl, wearing a dress she'd picked herself, scattering petals with such serious concentration that the guests couldn't help but smile. Lyanna was radiant in a simple white gown that made Minho's breath catch when he saw her. They'd written their own vows. Hers were about second chances and unexpected heroes and learning to trust again. His were about phone calls that changed everything and falling in love with 2 people at once and promising to be worthy of the gift he'd been given. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. The reception was small, too, dancing under string lights while Mia ran around with Minho's young cousins. Toasts that made everyone laugh and cry. A wedding cake shaped like a phone that was Mia's idea and made everyone groan at the pun. As the evening wound down, Minho found Lyanna alone for a moment, watching Mia play. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Happy, Mrs. Kang." Deliriously, she leaned into him, "Though I still can't quite believe this is real sometimes, that I went from struggling to survive to this. Believe it, this is your life now, our life." He turned her in his arms, "And it's about to get even better." "Better how?" He placed his hand on her stomach, where their second child was growing. They'd found out 2 weeks ago, had decided to wait to tell anyone until after the wedding. But he couldn't resist giving her this gift on their wedding day. The knowledge that they were building something permanent, something that would last beyond them. "You're going to be an amazing mother to 2, he whispered. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "How did you know?" "I pay attention to everything about you. I noticed you'd stopped drinking wine. Noticed you've been tired. Noticed the way you touch your stomach when you think no one's looking." He kissed her softly. We're going to have a baby, Lyanna, our baby. Mia's going to be a big sister. We're going to be a family in every way that matters. We already are a family. I know, but now we get to grow it. Get to build something that started with a little girl's desperate phone call and turned into this. Into us. Into everything. 6 months later, Lyanna gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named Daniel, after Minho's late father. Mia took her role as big sister seriously, hovering over the baby with protective intensity that made both parents laugh and cry. The house was chaos. Beautiful, wonderful chaos. Late-night feedings and Mia's school projects and Minho trying to balance running an empire with being present for every important moment. He'd learned to delegate more. Learned that the world wouldn't end if he missed a meeting because Mia had a school play. Learned that the most important deals he'd ever close weren't in boardrooms, but around dinner tables with his family. One evening, when Daniel was 6 months old, Minho sat in the nursery watching Lyanna rock their son to sleep. Mia was curled up asleep in Lyanna's lap too, exhausted from a busy day. The sight of them together made his chest tight with emotion. Lyanna looked up and caught him watching. What are you thinking about? That I used to believe power was about control, about dominating markets and crushing competition and building empires that would outlast me. He moved closer, careful not to wake either child. But real power is this, is protecting the people you love, is building a life that matters beyond profit margins, is being the person your family needs you to be. You're getting soft, Mr. Kang, she teased gently. Maybe, but I blame you entirely. He kissed her forehead. You taught me what really matters, you and Mia. You showed me that the best things in life aren't bought or negotiated, they're given freely, and all I had to do was answer the phone. Best wrong number ever dialed, she murmured. Best accident ever. Not an accident. Lyanna's eyes were serious now. Fate, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, that call was meant to happen. We were meant to find each other. Mia was meant to save both of us. She was right. He knew she was right. Some things couldn't be explained by logic or probability. Some things just were. Like a little girl transposing digits in a panic and reaching the one person in all of Seoul who would drop everything to save her. Like that person falling completely, irrevocably in love with both her and her mother. Like building a family from broken pieces and desperate phone calls and the impossible grace of second chances. Minho had spent his entire adult life being untouchable, unreachable. The kind of powerful that made people afraid to even look at him directly. And then a 6-year-old girl's voice had cracked through all of it, and he'd found something better than power. He'd found home. 5 years after that first phone call, the house was even more chaotic. Mia was 11 now, still protective of her younger siblings. Daniel was a rambunctious 5-year-old who worshipped his big sister, and their daughter Sarah, age 3, had just started preschool and had opinions about everything. Minho had officially adopted Mia. The paperwork had taken time, but seeing his name on her birth certificate as her father had been one of the proudest moments of his life. Second only to both times, Lyanna had given him children. They'd just finished dinner, a rowdy affair with 3 kids talking over each other and food ending up in places it shouldn't, when Mia asked the question she asked periodically. Daddy, tell us again about the day I called you. Minho smiled. He never got tired of that story. Never got tired of the way Mia called him Daddy without hesitation. Never got tired of any of it. I was in my office working on something boring and important when my phone rang, and on the other end was the bravest little girl I'd ever heard. She was crying, but she was being so strong, and she told me her mommy needed help. And you came to save us, Mia said, even though she knew this story by heart. I came as fast as I could, and when I got there I found the 2 most important people in my entire life, even though I didn't know it yet. He reached over and ruffled her hair. You called the wrong number, but it turned out to be exactly the right person. Was it love at first sight with Mommy? Sarah asked, her words slightly lisped around missing teeth. It was something at first sight, Lyanna interjected, laughing. Your father was very bossy, ordering everyone around, being all intimidating and CEO-like. I was being efficient, Minho protested. You were being overwhelming, but also kind of impressive. She smiled at him across the table. And yes, there might have been some attraction, even though I tried very hard not to notice. Mommy tried to make Daddy leave, Mia informed her younger siblings. She kept saying she'd pay him back and he didn't have to help us, but Daddy wouldn't listen. Because I'm smart, Minho said. I knew a good thing when I saw it. Daniel, who'd been playing with his food, suddenly looked up. Are you going to tell us about how Mommy almost died again? I didn't almost die, Lyanna said firmly. I was just very sick and needed medical attention, which your father made sure I got. And then he made you fall in love with him, Sarah declared. That's true, Lyanna admitted. Though it wasn't very hard. He kept showing up with food and toys and being wonderful with Mia. How could I resist? You couldn't, Minho said confidently. No one can resist me. I'm irresistible. You're something, Lyanna laughed. Irresistible might be stretching it. Their eyes met across the table, full of shared memories and private jokes and the kind of deep understanding that came from building a life together through challenges and triumphs and everyday mundane moments that somehow added up to everything. Later, after the kids were finally asleep, Minho found Lyanna on their bedroom balcony, looking out at the Seoul skyline. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned into him with the comfortable ease of long familiarity. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Mia had dialed the right number that day? She asked quietly. Never, because she didn't. She dialed my number, and that's the only reality that matters. The odds of it were astronomical. Your private line. Not listed anywhere, not connected to emergency services. What are the chances? Astronomical, he agreed. Impossible even, which is why I stopped trying to explain it with probability and started accepting it as fate. We were meant to find each other, Lyanna. You, me, and Mia. And then Daniel and Sarah. This was always supposed to be our family. She turned in his arms to face him. I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you for saving us that day. Staying even when I tried to push you away. For loving Mia like she's yours. For giving me Daniel and Sarah. For building this life with me. I love you too, more than I thought I could love anyone, more than I knew I was capable of loving. He cupped her face gently. You taught me that power isn't about domination. It's about protection. That strength isn't about being untouchable. It's about being vulnerable enough to let people in. You and Mia broke through walls I didn't even know I'd built. And I'm grateful for it every single day. They stood there for a long time, holding each other under the stars, while their children slept safely inside and the city hummed with life below. Thank you, Lyanna whispered finally. For what? For answering the phone, for coming to help a stranger and her daughter, for being the kind of man who sees someone in need and doesn't calculate the cost before helping, for everything that came after. Thank you for giving me a family, for trusting me with Mia. For building this life with me, for every moment of every day. Minho kissed her softly. And thank you for raising a daughter brave enough to call for help when she needed it, smart enough to keep trying even when the number was wrong. Strong enough to trust a stranger because her mother taught her that some people are good. Mia saved all of us that day, but you're the one who made her into someone capable of it. Inside the house, a baby monitor crackled with Sarah's voice calling for water. They both smiled, the moment of quiet romance giving way to the beautiful chaos of parenthood. As they headed inside together, Minho thought about how much his life had changed in 5 years, how a single phone call had redirected his entire existence. How a little girl's desperate plea had cracked open his heart and let light in. He'd built an empire on strategy and ruthlessness and the cold calculation of power. But the best thing he'd ever built was this. A family. A home. A life filled with laughter and love, and the kind of messy, imperfect perfection that came from choosing each other every single day. And it had all started with 3 simple words spoken by a frightened 6-year-old who dialed the wrong number at exactly the right time. Please help me, he'd answered, and in doing so, had saved himself as much as he'd saved them.